This video will explain how to use speech punctuation when we are writing direct speech. Speech marks are used to indicate the start and end of one person speaking. And so, if we change speaker, then we will need a new set of speech marks to surround the words that they are speaking. The challenge is to remember whether the speech marks go before or after other pieces of punctuation in a sentence. And also there are some challenges to do with capital letters. The main rule of speech punctuation is that commas and full stops go before speech marks. However, unfortunately, there are of course exceptions to this rule, as we shall see. Firstly, I'd just like to say that some people use single speech mark and some people use these double speech marks. We sometimes refer to single speech marks as inverted commas. Both are acceptable to use, and in fact you will tend to see in English novels the single quotation marks being used more than the doubles, which tends to be more of an Americanism. However, for clarity in this video, so that we don't get confused between inverted commas, apostrophes, or other things it looks like, we will just use the double speech marks. Here's an example of speech punctuation. Daniel said, comma, open speech marks, I am not happy about this, full stop, close speech marks. So as you can see here, a comma is used before the first speech marks because we are separating off the part of the sentence that identifies who is speaking with what it is they are saying. And then you can see we put a full stop before the closed speech marks to show that we've brought an end to this sentence. Here is another example where we have changed the order. Open speech marks. Please don't put that there, comma, close speech marks, Gemma said, full stop. Now in this instance, we've begun the sentence with the speech marks, and so we have speech marks right at the start of the sentence, and we put a comma before the end speech marks because we are separating off what Gemma is saying from the identification that it is Gemma that is doing the speaking. And then we need a full stop after said to end the sentence. Here is a slight deviation on that format. Open speech marks. Please don't put that there, comma, end speech marks. Gemma said, comma, open speech marks, as I would rather it went over here, full stop, end speech marks. Now that rather confusing sounding sentence with me saying all the punctuation is identifying for you that if we are slotting in the reporting clause, Gemma said, midway through the sentence rather than ending the sentence with it, then instead of a full stop after said, we have a comma and then we reopen the speech marks to show that Gemma is continuing to speak. What about capital letters and other punctuation such as exclamation marks and question marks? For example, what about this sentence? This is a great film! Exclamation mark. He shouted. Now, you may think this is correct because an exclamation mark would usually bring the end of a sentence, and we would therefore begin the next sentence with a capital letter. So surely he should have a capital H. However, this is incorrect in speech punctuation, and instead it should read, this is a great film! Exclamation mark. He shouted, with a small h. So what punctuation and capital letters would you put in this sentence? Do you really think you understand this now? She asked. First, let's add the speech marks. We put speech marks before do and after now. Do you really think you understand this now is the piece of speech, and we've separated that off. Now, let's add any other punctuation. We realize that that line of speech is a question, so we put a question mark at the end of it before the end speech mark, and then we put a full stop at the end of asked to bring the sentence to a close. Finally, let's add capital letters. We have added a capital D at the start of the sentence, but you'll notice that we have not added a capital S for she. Even though we've used a question mark, we do not give a capital letter to the word she, as we are still completing the sentence which contains a line of speech. So we've seen this principle now with exclamation marks and question marks, that if we are then using a name, so if it was, do you really think you understand this now? Danny asked, we would still use a capital D because it's a capital D for the name. But if we use the pronoun she, then we don't use a capital. We use a small she because the question mark doesn't actually bring the sentence to an end. It just marks the end and the style of the line of speech. So a reminder, speech marks are used to indicate the start and end of one person speaking, and the challenge is to remember whether they go before or after other punctuation in a sentence, as well as what they do to capital letters.